Let's keep talking budget and more specifically business. A triple whammy, this is as reported in Stuff this morning, a triple whammy of price increases, supply shortages and failing demand is forcing a growing number of businesses to the wall. That's according to a new report. The Auckland firm BWA Insolvency has tracked data on liquidations, receiverships and voluntary administrations since 2012. Its latest report shows 355 formal insolvency proceedings were lodged in the 3 months to March 31st of this year, compared to 277 in the first quarter of last year. That's an increase of 28%. One of the more high-profile ones, Jenny Craig. They've had to cut costs, as it were. So Jenny Craig are in administration. So times are tough. There is no doubt that times are tough, and times are tough for business. The biggest business lobby organisation in New Zealand is Business New Zealand. So what do they want, or what do their members want in Budget 2023, due to be delivered tomorrow? To find out, we are joined now by Kirk Hope from Business New Zealand. Kirk, nice to have you back with us.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, is business in a bad way? Those insolvency figures would suggest so, and we know we've got a recession, and I, like many other people, had the email from the bank the other day about the interest rates, and every dollar I'm spending on my mortgage I'm not spending out there in the business community.
Yeah, look, I think it's fair to say that business like households are doing it pretty tough. So, one of the things that we want to see out of the budget is for the government to be getting on top of inflation. That is, reducing their own spending or reprioritising it. I mean, if you look at what has been announced, it's around $4 billion, I think, that they're going to be spending, which, based on kind of the numbers that they've been increasing spending by since 2019, is what a ANZ economist called a drop in the bucket, or a rounding error, frankly. So as long as that involves reprioritisation of spending to more productive areas, so what would that look like from a business perspective? The OECD have already said that New Zealand governments need to spend more on R&D so that we can promote productivity. We would say, add on to that, and the EMA have said this, and I think they make a really good point, increase depreciation or accelerate depreciation for investment in plant. So that means, when you're buying stuff for kit for your business, you're able to depreciate it at a faster rate. So what that means is you can expense it out quicker. That is a much more efficient mechanism for people to buy large capital items, if you like, and as an incentive to do that. And that's really what we need to be more productive. So things like that would make a difference without a huge amount of cost, frankly.
Any chance we're going to see those things, or have you had any indications that we will?
We keep wishing for the accelerated depreciation point, Sean, but I don't think so, because essentially the government really have no money to spend. And the money that they do have to spend, and this is another priority area, and I certainly agree with this, is putting money towards the most hard-hit areas after the cyclone, and the Hawke's Bay, the Gisbornes. We're just reinstating those infrastructure links. Roading is going to take a lot of money, right? And getting those roading and rail and transport links resilient is also going to take a lot of money. So that's going to be money well spent for those regions, and we really need that because they're big export regions. And, we're seeing partly, for example, food inflation caused by the fact that those areas were very, very hard hit during the cyclone, so less supply of vegetables and so on and so forth. So we need those areas to get back up and running quickly.
Have you had a look at ACT's alternate budget?
I've been laid up with COVID, so I haven't seen a huge amount of stuff.
All right.
But I know essentially what they'd be saying, which is also some tax indexation or tax cuts. I think, again, if the government can afford those things, particularly indexation, that's an important point to put money back in the pockets of New Zealanders.
Absolutely. It is election year, so we probably expect, and it's a Labour government, So we probably expect some largesse to shore up core supporters in an election year, don't we? That would be, if we were going to look back historically, we'd be naive to think that an incumbent government wouldn't use an election year budget to throw a few lollies the way of its loyal supporters or maybe its wavering supporters.
Yeah, I mean, I think in normal times you would expect that. I'm not sure that they can afford to really do that, Sean. I mean, as you've said, people are already hurting because they know it's because of inflation. They can see interest rates rising as a consequence of inflation. They know the government is a big spender in the economy, and if they see big spending, there'll be a real turn-off, actually, I think, for a lot of households in the election. So they have to be very, very careful about how they balance the politics of this.
Yeah. Budgets are not what they used to be, are they, Kirk? I mean, in your lifetime, in your professional lifetime, you would have seen their importance as a piece of annual political theatre diminish quite significantly, and much of the large spending in this budget or strategic direction's already been well signalled, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is really interesting. I was thinking about this just the other day. I mean, we don't have the big, for example, the changes in levy on cigarettes or alcohol.
It used to be you went out, you filled the car with gas, you bought a carton of cigarettes and a few flagons of beer just in case, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's actually a good thing, because you don't want people hanging around waiting for something. And in some ways, prefacing what essentially will be in the budget with a series of announcements means that you have less uncertainty in an election year, which are inherently uncertain in any case. So what happens typically in an election year, I think you see some investment drop off just because people wait and see, particularly if they think it's going to be a close election, because they really want to know what they're going to be dealing with on the other side. You know, whatever that shape is, they want to know what that looks like before they spend a dollar or invest a dollar.
Mm. Kirk, the one area of spending that it seems to me there's almost uniform agreement on, maybe not of the quantum or the specifics, but it seems to me across the parties people are saying we need to spend more on defence. We need to make our defence community compatible with our nearest allies and our nearest neighbours, and that perhaps we have underinvested there. And while maybe that unanimity is a good thing, I also look at defence spending, and apart from spending more on wages to retain staff in New Zealand, it would seem that most of the kit you buy for defence and everything you buy off overseas companies, and it doesn't do much for the domestic economy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really challenging one. I mean, typically our defence policy has been based around, doing what we do best, which is certainly humanitarian deployment. There might have been some support work, some important support work in places like Afghanistan and Iraq, but we don't have a huge defence force that is deployed internationally, and when it is, it's usually again for support rather than other types of things. So you just say, what would you spend your money on in defence if you weren't going to spend it on the people? Because they appear to be they appear to be most of what has been used overseas in the past to support our allies. I think you might recall New Zealand First, when they were in government, committed the government to spending about $8 billion on kit, and as you rightly point out, that's mostly stuff that was bought in. But at the time it was deemed necessary, right? Because we had some pretty old aircraft and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's a big change.
Yeah. How will business, do you think, measure the success or otherwise of the budget tomorrow, or are we really all just waiting for the election?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think from a business perspective, as I said, we're not holding our breath on that accelerated depreciation point. The government's got some policy areas that they're completely focused on. We would say if you ditch those, you might make a good start on productivity, fair pay agreements. My old bugbear would be one of those. But also, things like the Work and Resource Management Act, which it's really not going to hit the mark. It's probably going to be worse, and we really need that developed. They have done something good in the RMA space, and that's the fast-track consenting stuff. But again, I think business by and large would like to see the government make a commitment to ensuring that what they can do to get inflation down as quickly as possible is what I think we're all waiting to see. And again, you're right. I mean, apart from that, it's mostly just waiting for the election.
Yeah. Kirk, I thank you for your time this morning. Always good talking to you. Kirk Hope from Business New Zealand there. What do you want tomorrow? What do you expect? Not much. Is it just another day? This is good. This is good. This is friendly anons. Sean, you know businesses are going through hard times when even Jenny Craig has to tighten their belts. Very good. Very, very droll, that.